Hello everybody, Captain Mick56 again. I am still in a private server that Hero had, and it expired, but I'm still in here. I did a video, and I'm going to do another one. And I don't really feel like building anything right now, so instead I'm just gonna load all my stuff and show you guys all this junk I've built. Some of it's neat, some of it's old, some of it's cheap, halfway, I don't know. We'll see. Obviously, airplane. I built this just like the day I got the scaling tool. So some stuff was scaled, some stuff wasn't scaled. Um, this was before I had the scaling tool. And this is kind of a big wheel kind of thing, and it does work. It's actually really, really reliable. Of course, it's all obsidian, so it makes it to the end like every time. It has wheels on it, so to put wheels on a giant wheel style vehicle makes you, able to really kind of get along, and that's kind of nice. This thing earned me a lot of gold. This was a kind of a grinder sort of thing that I did for a while. And just so you guys know, I've never used an AFK grinder. I've never felt like walking away. I was in a game with a guy who had one set up one time and let me in his team, and I hopped in it and I took about 3 rides to the treasure, and I was like, ugh, this is boring. Why would I want to be AFK? I'm in Build-A-Boat. I want to build. I want to drive. I want to do something. So that didn't last very long, and I learned myself a lesson. I don't need to build an AFK grinder. I have all the gold-getting capacity that I need. Oh, and of course you can see I'm nearing 600k gold, and of course I've purchased like everything I ever want. I don't know, I haven't really had a desire to purchase anything for a long time. But that's what happens if you just keep driving to the end. This is supposed to be a walker. Yeah, it kind of works. I have to keep it glued together while I drop it, otherwise some parts can fly off of it. And I totally forget how this works too, by the way. I have to release the block. Oh, there's the glue. Okay. And now I gotta figure out, okay, which keys, there we go. So I've got it keyed to C and V. Okay, I'm seeing that on the little list down here now. So yeah, it does function. You just go back and forth, CV, 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 and then you use WASD to steer it. So yeah, it's a walker. Yeah, technically it works, but well, who the heck wants to sit there and hit C and V over and over forever? Not I. So next up was, let's show this USA truck thing that I made. This was just, I wanted to build a semi, so I did, and then I built a flag, and I was thinking, what could I put the flag on? So I'll slap it on the side of the semi, that'll be cool. Semi just happened to be colored kind of a red, white, and blue thing. Yes, of course, I'm in United States, Seattle area, so kind of a USA person. It looks okay. Problem with this one is the hinge right here that attaches the trailer to the truck part. It's stiff, so I have the springs active on the trailer part, and so they have a little bit of a bounce to them, so the pressure of the trailer weighs down and pushes the front wheels up here off the ground. So I locked the front springs so that the front vehicle tends to stay on the ground a little bit better, but then the trailer's a little floppy. Essentially, I haven't really refined this thing very well, but I think this kind of vehicle would be great to use without springs, because once you start putting any kind of springs on there, you can have some funny things happen with that hinge, and it can actually take your steering wheels off the ground so that you don't have any steering in certain situations. So, what else have I made? The city, that takes forever to load. The spider thing. Snake is a work in progress. I have not finished the snake. It's going to be this big thing. It's I took my train chassis, which I can load up now, and I modified it to be the snake. We'll see what that looks like someday. There's my train. Uses old wheels. I use a pilot seat, right, left to steer the thing. It has a lot of protection around it. This thing, transparency here. So this thing's got an enormous amount of protection. Each one of the cars has got gold blocks to protect its wheels, giant plastic barrier out in front. I use plastic a lot for this because no matter how heavy or light the vehicle is, or how far out in front the protection blocks extend, you don't really have to compensate for the weight if you use plastic. I think there was supposed to be another light block, but I don't remember what it was. Cloth or something, I forget. Anyway, there's nothing to say you can't use other blocks for protection. You could totally use titanium. In fact, I do on some of my builds. But if you do that, then you have to compensate for the weight of the titanium in front by putting more titanium behind. I think this is one of them that maybe uses titanium. Let's see here. Uses all kinds of stuff. So there's a big chunk of titanium wrapped around the front of this thing for protection. But then you can see gobs and gobs of obsidian in the back. I got some gold in there. This thing is a well-protected vehicle, but all that protection comes with a cost. If you use heavy stuff like this, then you really have to have high torque on your wheels, and you can probably see that here. See, I've got my wheel torque turned all the way up. On a vehicle this small with a wheelbase this tight, to have your torque turned all the way up like that, it drives kind of crazy. And of course, this one you can see it's kind of a crazy looking vehicle anyway, even if I do have it loaded like it's supposed to be. So it's kind of fun. So this force field thing around it doesn't really do anything, of course. The protection that it gets is all from those invisible blocks. The invisible blocks, by the way, you just turn collision off and make them invisible with the screwdriver tool. And with collision off, you can drive through any block that's not explosive. So a block that's explosive doesn't pay any attention to collision off, and it'll go ahead and get right through to your core blocks, and it'll blow you up anyway. But with a good amount of protection blocks in front of your vehicle, you can drive through probably 5 stages pretty reliably without really worrying about getting damaged. So you can see here on this one, it gets this teeter-tottering thing going. And I wanted to show you what the invisible blocks are doing while this is happening. So this is because I've got such a narrow wheelbase. If I had the wheelbase a little wider, of course this would be lessened dramatically. But that's what the thrusters are for. So you turn on thrusters, it helps push you down, and then you drive it. It doesn't totter near as much. It doesn't get to teeter-tottering. So yeah, those protection blocks, they just eat everything they run into. And of course they get eaten too. If you use plastic or something, it gets eaten up pretty bad, fast. But you can get quite a bit of distance out of a gigantic chunk of plastic. Of course, you've seen the amount of plastic I have. Overkill. I cannot be underrated. Go ahead, overkill the amount of protection plastic you got. So this one here, I've got it set up so that the wheels, the protection is all independently tied to the wheels, so that I could activate my suspension on this one, and then the protection would still stay with each individual wheel and protect it, even though it's independently moving from the other 3 wheels. Oh, and of course there's this thing, which I forgot to turn on. There's a switch right there. There we go, a little prettiness. So that's pretty much all that's for. It's just kind of prettiness. You can drive right through the blocks with it. Hey, I'm not going to make it to the end because I reset. I'm going to load the next item here. What's it going to be? I think tank is going to be loaded next. So, of course, I built a tank, and I had it in this build. I decided to throw a few other things in here with it. So a bunch of these other things were in independent builds by themselves when I first started the game, and I just sort of moved them together before I had Robux so that I could keep building. So I'd move the items into this build, and then I could use those builds for something else. And of course, moving the items into a build, that's kind of a nice thing to do too, especially if you're trying to avoid using Robux for it. You can just drive your vehicle down to the first stage and turn around and drive back. And while you're in the first stage, you can load a different build, and then you can just drive back and it transfers that into another build. So, like, I could just load, I don't know, that new car that we just built in the other video I made. So now I still have this vehicle because I was in the first stage when I loaded this other one, but look at that. Now there's another vehicle sitting on my plot. And of course, you guys have done this already, kind of like, this is old news. You can just place a platform big enough for your vehicle to sit on, and then just drive onto it. You can get oriented however you want it. You can even attach a block to one of the chairs, like a cake, and then you can straighten the thing out, and you can suspend it up off the ground. But essentially, if you select all, anchor all, and then you delete that platform from beneath it, now you've got an anchored, unconnected vehicle there, and I can just hit save on this, and it'll save this vehicle right in with the other one, and then I can reload it, and now I've got two vehicles in this one build. So it's kind of nice to have. Race cars. Ooh, watch me get flattened. So these have protection blocks. Oh, I might have standing right between them. No, I just didn't get flattened. Loaded so fast. So these have a lot of protection blocks out in front of them. And boy, do they go. Most of these things will make it to the end of the run, get you some gold. Sometimes you don't. I've made these big trucks, kind of just like that other new truck that I made. Nothing too special about them, just big wheels. Made a Starship. Looks neat on the outside, kind of a Star Trek theme kind of thing. It's empty on the inside. It's like just very, very empty. A lot of circles in here, a lot of rounded stuff. All this front here. Of course, I did the nacelles and then duplicated it, so I cloned the nacelle. The shaft, of course, the pylons, whatever you call them, I couldn't clone those, of course. Different angle. Accessories. This is I've got a couple of accessory builds. I take stuff in here to be moved between builds. So little items, stuff that there's my men and women signs for the bathrooms. I'll just go stick those on the doors when I'm done. There's a bunch of toilets, of course, cornfield. There's my foosball table. I built that in the house build. Most of these items in here I built in place in the builds that they reside in. So my house build or city, and then I transfer them in here if I can move them to a different one. But they're initially built in the large builds most of the time. The bird here, that guy was built in the house build in the backyard, and then I walked him inside and put him down in the bedroom and anchored him in place, and then I copied it into here as well. And one of the rare things that I don't normally do is this Skee Ball, where I actually built this one in the accessories build. I built it right here in this spot, and then I moved it into the house build afterwards. The reason for that was it was just too many circles in here, and I had to do all these, very independently, and they're all at a different angle, and I didn't have that much room above it, so I needed to be able to stretch this thing out so I could really back off, so I could get all the stack of rotated blocks sticking out of it. There's my kitchen chairs for my house build. There's the line of arcade machines for the upstairs. There's the recliners. Those are in the city build, in the lounge, in the women's restroom. This is for the arcade. There's the gas pumps for the city build, and of course my fountain. That goes in front of the house, and it's also in the city, right next to the skyscraper. There's my American flag. The American flag was a tricky one. It took me a little while. I actually looked up all the dimensions of the flag online and found that the dimensions of each one of the stripes and all the stars and the pattern and everything. So this is actually to scale, as close as I could possibly get it, within reason. Obviously, I could have made real stars. That just seemed like too much work. I'm lazy. 76 gas station sign for the gas station in the house build. I did that just because I needed to put the same sign several places. Inside here is a fire hydrant. I used that in the city build. I used a camera for the top of the fire hydrant there. There's a little coffee maker right there. And that goes in the house build. I think there's one in the city build too in the bank. And let's see what else. There's a sphere. That's just a big gold ball. And sure enough, there it is. I think these blocks are too thick. No, they're 6 thick. No, so there's invisible blocks on top of this. So let me go to select all here. You can see all the invisible blocks. Looks like a porcupine or something. I think those are plastic. Oh yeah, that's my style. So those are plastic. Those are collision off. The gold blocks themselves, there you go. Those are too thick. And I duplicated this, so I made a ring, and then I just rotated it and cloned and rotated and cloned and rotated. So that's why it looks like that. Didn't take too long. Giant truck. I've got some of these things that are kind of like, they look sort of like other ones that I have. So this one here has a certain style of suspension. That the other one that looks just about like it has a different style of suspension. So I've reused the chassis and the wheels, but I've changed the suspension on the other one. So this one here uses the servos to turn the wheels, and then this funky teeter-totter method here with a hinge. It's got a hinge right here on this spot, and then these two pieces here hinge together there and there, and that keeps these wheels turned in the right direction. So they turn as a pair, and I'll let you see that. I don't drive this vehicle very much, so here you can see they turn as a pair, and you can also see the swinging motion. So that's kind of part of their suspension. It's just free swinging, but it gets the job done. It's kind of neat, but this one doesn't have any protection blocks out in front of it, so it kind of gets chewed up pretty bad, pretty fast. And this suspension style, the blocks tend to get stuck inside of each other right at the joints here. So yeah, if you hit something hard, or you take off flying and you land hard, it gets all jammed and it kind of breaks it. Let's see what else I got. The green truck you've already seen. The suit started out as a suit, and then I had a bunch of extra space, so I stuck a building in there too. So there's my suit. It's made out of a satellite dish turned upside down, and I just cake myself onto that chair. I've got a boat motor, thruster, all these candies. There's a parachute and balloons here as well. It's kind of an all-in-one kind of silly thing. That's just kind of fun to mess around with. This is house of glass kind of thing. It'll make it to the end quite often. I get a little block of protection around me here, and this is 3 or 4 layers of concrete, so pretty good protection anyway. But of course that's never enough, and I put some additional protection stuff around them. And I think these are plastic, probably. Yep, that's my thing. Okay, and what else? Oh yeah, something stupid. I called this something stupid for a darn good reason, because normally you build a vehicle and you take it to the end, and as it breaks down, you just get off and you survive and everything's good and you go get your treasure. On this one, the driver's seat, for control reasons, is sitting in like the most dangerous place it could possibly be sitting, right? It's essentially you're sitting in the path of a giant jet engine, or sitting inside of it, and it's pretty bad. When you get to the treasure and you break down, oftentimes I flip off into the abyss, and I never get my treasures. But everybody that's riding with me, they're on this platform at the bottom, and it's one of the first things that breaks down. And so they usually get their treasure. The driver, the inventor, no. He gets flung off into space and dies. Terrible, Rocket. I have a rocket for controlling this. It fell off. Oh, there we go. That's the way of it. So, that's why I saved it as something stupid. And I just wanted you all to understand that it really is something stupid. Okay. Tricycle. Oh, I like the tricycle. That was a fun one. So, it is just a big tricycle. Has a ladder to go up the back here. Of course, that ladder is invisible, so if I ever pull up to your base, just know there's a ladder on it. This here is a wheel, and it turns the whole front of the whole thing. The whole front wheel, the pedals, the steering, everything is controlled by this one wheel that sits right here. And it's got invisible blocks that connect the whole thing. Of course, there's protection stuff out in front of it. But that wheel allows this whole mechanism to turn, and of course there's a little gap right there that allows that stuff to rotate. There's 4 wheels on the big wheel here. There's 2 of them inside and 2 of them outside to run the pedals. They're run independently of each other in a way, but I believe they're actually tied together. Yeah, so there's this bar right here that goes through the spokes of the other wheel, and that ties the pedals together so they stay in sync with each other. But they are run by independent motors, so it's just kind of different. I find my controls are backwards for some reason on this thing. Maybe I inverted my controls. Reverse spin. Anyway, let's load the next thing. Race cars. So in a lot of my builds, I've cloned the car and then I changed things just a little bit. This one here with the red roof has been modified to work with touch screens. So people on like an Xbox or a tablet or cell phone or something like that can drive this one. And the way that works is that because of the keying, because when I use all front wheels, I key to T, F, G, and H on my keyboard. But this one here is WASD, and it's got a driver's seat, whereas these other ones over here have pilot seats because they are for running on keyboard. And so those are keyed to TFGH. And this one here is just regular. And that's so if anybody joins my team and they want to drive something, they can drive this one. And the thrusters here fire F, this one, which is the standard key. If you're on a tablet, then there's a little button that shows up on your screen and you can steer that way. And let's see what else I have. This is a very long video. I think I'll probably chop it into 2.